My name's Frankie, or Fra. I'm from a Bogside. Grew up in the Troubles, 1969. Um, wasn't easy growing up in the bog, being a gay man, And also too, I'm an alcoholic, recovering on a daily basis, and this last 9 years has been pretty rough for me, and all the hits have happened, suicides and overdoses and just a madness when drink takes hold, and I'm a bit binge drinker, so I could go on a 5 6 days, but then the drink stops me, and end up being violently ill, and have been admitted to hospital in the past, and also down to Grantia. Um, I did have relatively 12 good years of sobriety. My mum died. I was in a very mentally abusive relationship, so what happened was I just started having a wee quiet bottle at night, a wee quarter bottle, and what happened then was then a wee quarter bottle led to a half bottle, led to a bottle, before you know it, was fully fledged, mad, raving alcoholic again, Um, as I say, growing up, growing up was hard for me because, I was a young gay boy growing up. I didn't know my sexuality. I was about 11 or 12, but I mean, growing up was hard. It was always name calling. I always tried to fit in. And I had only one good friend. She was a girl, and the rest I hated school. I went to an all boys school. Primary school wasn't too bad. Secondary school was a nightmare. But just always kind of trying to justify my fucking existence, in this life, and it's hard at times, I mean, I'm no different than anybody else, but, my family gets stuck too, like my brothers would have got stuck, and my mum was always out fighting my corner and stuff like that, But, and I've been relatively shy, but then I found drink in it at 16, 17, and drink made me very witty and very funny, and I was invited to all the parties, and I came out when I was 19, which is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, living in Derry, being a gay man, when there would have been about 6 or 7 of us, we all hung about with each other, and we're all good friends, There was no gay disco as such. McGee Student Union had a disco from 9 at night to 11 p.m. once a month, But then a new manager took over. And I found out that gay men and lesbians drank like fishes. So that it was from 9 then to 1 every fortnight or whatever, It was more of a sense of community then, believe it or not, because gay people would have went to other people's houses, to have a drink, socialise. When we went out the town all together, that kind of stuff. And I mean, it wasn't easy, always, see name calling, I'm 49 years of age, and I still get called that in the street. Ignorance, children's ignorance, or teenagers, and you think that there's going to come a stage in my life where I'm going to be stopped being called after, and I don't think there is.
Just the usual gay names.
I mean, no, everything's gay now, I mean, it's like, I mean, kids now, they put on top, that's about gay, you know what I mean, they've taken it to the other extreme, and the way I look at it is, years ago, gay people took back that name, queer, which queer means different, no matter who you are, do you know what I mean? But we took that back, and my mother walked with me in the first gay march in Derry, because there was a lot of, they call them hate crimes now, but back in the day we called them gay passions, and boys were around cars with their baseball bats, and I had a friend left in intensive care. I had a few friends bit up, and the mad thing about it, one of the fellas was actually doing the battering, turned out to be gay himself, because there's a self-hit down there. So my mother walked down, I walked up shit, the street, was half shot, and she was at the top of it, and I shouted, I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm not going shopping. And she said, my Frank, will I get my Frank, So she walked down the street with me, and that was the first gay march in Derry, visible gay march. And she was blowing a wee whistle, so was I, and my mum was very, very proud of me, And she always says, she was interviewed years ago for a book. A friend of mine, his mother wrote a book, part of her university degree, and it was Mothers of Gay Sons, and she says, Annie, what do you think about Frank? She says, well, when God gave me my Frank, she says, she gave me two in one. She gave me a wee boy and a wee girl. And I understood that. My mum could talk to me about women's problems and whatever, and confide in me, and she couldn't do it with my other brothers and stuff. So when she died, my world basically collapsed around me, and at 28 I went on to the Northern Centre. I'm jumping back and forth here, but at 28 I went on the Northern Centre and spent 6 weeks on there and had relatively 12 good years of sobriety, and then my mum died, and as I say, slowly started drinking again and all them. I mean, I was sitting outside the bank tapping, I have my own home. I was sitting with other alcoholics that are used to in the street, and I'm not wise at all in the street. I'm a bit stupid, get phone stolen on me, money stolen on me, get me busted fist, busted mouth, it's madness down there, and as I always say, there's no difference between carpet and concrete. At the end of the day, if you're lying on the ground drunk, it doesn't matter if you're not in your big fancy house, you're fucking drunk. You're lying in the street, you're drunk, whatever, there's no difference. But at the minute in Derry, they're kind of rounding up all the street alcoholics and they're fining them for drinking in the street. They're not allowed to drink in their hostels. They kind of go into a pub and drink. Where do they drink? They drink in the streets, And that needs to be addressed because, they need somewhere to go and drink. You just can't stop somebody from drinking and slapping on a fine of £45 or whatever, I think that's mental. I want to get on with my life, I want peace between my ears, I still go to regularly to AA, and I have a good few friends, that I can talk to about anything, I have an older brother that really, really supports me, and I have been honest and said this in the past, and I'll say it now, if it wasn't for him, I'd be 6 feet under, because, I have stood looking on the water, on the foil, I have taken an overdose, and I phoned a friend, and actually I don't even remember phoning a friend. He was able to phone an ambulance and all that stuff and get me to the hospital. I spent time in Grantia. I have to laugh that the consultant or the psychiatrist says to me, you've all the traits of bipolar, but I'm not diagnosed with bipolar. Because there's too many people being diagnosed bipolar. So I get very, very high or get very, very low. And not that long ago, I went to the doctor. I was in a bad way, and I was coming off a drink, and I did DTs and stuff, and I went to the doctor. And this particular doctor, my doctors were quite good in my practice, but this particular doctor told me, do you go home and get a wee half bottle and sip on it? They tell an alcoholic to go home and get a half bottle to sip on it. It's like pitting a child in a sweetie shop and telling the child you only have one sweet, but you're allowed on here on your own. You turn your back. The wine's going to go into all the sweets. Same as me, it's just like right, I'll have a wee half bottle. Then I start off with a wee half bottle, and then it's on to another bottle and another bottle, you know what I mean? But life is hard, and I mean, not only is there drink in the streets, definitely there's drugs in the streets, and then you have people that are dual addicted, and I can't say I've tried drugs, but it's just not my thing, my thing is drink, but I've seen the town, I've seen people having seizures in front of me, and I've seen people just collapsing in front of me, and fella had a seizure and he actually died, Recently, a fella went up to Letterkenny, went up to the mental hospital up there, I forget the name of it, but they told him that they had no room for him and that he'd be okay. And that young fella went home, and 2 days later he hung himself. So there's no support out there as such. You have all these politicians, all these doctors, and they're all sitting down and they're all talking. First of all, you have a barrier. If I want to talk to a professional person, they have a table in front of them, they have a chair in front of them, they're wearing a shirt and tie. It's very, very clinical. They need to be sitting down and actually talking to people as individuals, not as statistics. And that's what they're saying. All they want to know is statistics, And I just think there needs to be an alcohol and drug unit. Grangewood, if somebody's not well and suicidal, they're put on there for 72 hours and then they're through out with a number. If you're feeling anxious or you're feeling like suicidal, ring this number. Some people don't want to. Some people just don't want to talk to anybody. Some people just want to go to a place that's safe. and they know that they're on there and they're being looked after and they feel safe. This is what it's about. Not to go back home again and your head start doing your head on, and before you know it you're drinking, and then, you know, people have done in this town ended their lives, you know.